I was asked to give this news bite, and under this particular title, it's pretty easy to talk about what the idea is and to talk about what my, and I think the passion that's shared by other people that have been working on this project over the last 6 or 7 years. The idea is to get the Bredora Lake and its watershed, which you can see on this map over here, and I would encourage you to have a look at the map later on when there's an opportunity to see some of the detail on it. But the idea is to get the lake and its watershed designated as a UNESCO Man in the Biosphere Reserve. And the passion behind that idea, I want my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren to have that particular element in their environment accessible to them and to be used by them. And so basically the passion comes from thinking that we should live more sustainably. We should change the way we've been acting and encourage people to do the quote-unquote the right thing. Another passion of mine that fits in perfectly with this, and it comes from teaching ecology to students for many years at the university, and that is to try and get people, all people, to see themselves as part of the natural environment. I think we used to have debates in my classes, I used to have debates with students over what the word natural meant. And for most people, natural means no people. I used to say, when you take a picture of nature or the natural world, usually you stand there with your camera and wait for the other tourists to get out of the way, and then you take your picture. And I would encourage them to, no, take your picture with the people there, because they are part of the ecology. So it's very easy for me to get passionate about trying to get this thing designated. So how do you make it happen? You advocate for sustainability in terms of lifestyles, you advocate for best practices, and I would argue that you advocate in a positive sense. You reward people for doing the right thing. You don't penalize people for doing the wrong thing. There are all kinds of environmental police out there that are either doing a good or a bad job, depending on your point of view. But nonetheless, I believe that the best way to get people to change is to reward them for doing the right thing and to put in front of them an accessible way best practices and what we should all be doing as opposed to what we shouldn't be doing. Well, one of the ways to promote best practices is this idea that came from UNESCO back in the 1960s, where people were starting to understand that we have to start doing things differently. And people were saying, well, how do we know what we should be doing? Is anybody doing the right thing anywhere in the world? And the UN said, well, of course there are there and over there. There are groups that are trying to live more sustainably. And that was the origin of the Biosphere Reserve concept. And now there's 564 of these places we can point to around the world where people are trying to make a difference, trying to live more in harmony with their environment. And that's what a Biosphere Reserve is. And hopefully this will be 565. So Biosphere Reserves are places that show, they're sort of demonstration places where we can show people how to live sustainably. I guess the ultimate direction that this should go in is that the entire planet has to become a Biosphere Reserve if we're going to survive. And so that's basically where I think the whole thing goes. A little bit about our group and our history. We started back in 2003. All volunteers, started with just people from around the watershed. And we were focusing on the St. Andrews Channel as a particularly unique place that we thought we might be able to get some designation for and some distinction for. But it soon went out to the watershed around the Bredora Lake. And the watershed just represents an area where when the rain falls inside the watershed, it drains towards the lake, and it's outside the watershed, it's draining some other direction. So that's why you end up at such a funny line. It's the high points, basically, all around the lake. We found out that we had to do this nomination document, and it took us about 3 or 4 years to get all of the nuts and bolts pieces together for the nomination document. I have a copy of it here with me tonight if you want to breeze through it, but it did end up at over 300 pages. And it's a great description of the gem that we have, or the jewel that we have here, and all of the work that's going on now by a whole variety of organizations that are trying to keep it that way, or even to make it better than it is. Part of the process was to develop maps like this, and we have to thank our Nova Scotia environment people for generating these maps and actually providing them to us in-house. These maps are fantastic, and these are all downloadable as well from our website, so feel free to do that. The other thing, other than doing the nomination document, was to garner public support. So while we were writing this document, we were also out and about, basically going anywhere anyone wanted to have us, to talk about what the Biosphere Reserve is, and also what a Biosphere Reserve is not. And so garnering public support was a big part of our job. And I'm very proud. The document itself contains over 20 different letters of support from organizations, municipalities, a variety of organizations, like this organization, for instance, wrote a letter of support for the concept. And it makes a very good document. The submission was submitted to the Canadian Commission for UNESCO. There's a man in the Biosphere Committee for Canada. In 2009, actually, and it came back with 120 comments, I think, by this reviewer, all very constructive comments, and all basically comments as if someone from outside Canada was reading the document, which is what happened in February of this year. And so those changes helped an awful lot. We then resubmitted it in 2010 to the Canadian Commission. It passed through the review in Canada with flying colors. They then, and Canada as a nation, nominates potential biosphere reserves. So the nomination then went forward from there to the UNESCO offices in Paris. And they have a review committee there that reviews all new biosphere reserves, and also the renewal of existing ones. And they met in February of this year. And in terms of this being a news bite, on Monday of this week, I received the news that this committee has recommended approval for the Biosphere Reserve. So, in a phrase, it's a done deal. And it's not official. It needs to be, this recommendation needs to be endorsed by another meeting in June, but it will not be a review, and will not be a meeting where it's discussed any further. It'll be accepting this committee's recommendation. And it's a very lovely recommendation, and I'll be posting it on our website probably fairly soon. Where are we today? Well, as I said, we're basically there, and it feels great. And I just want to tell you that we're an active organization still. We've been, even though we haven't had the designation approved, we've been moving forward with program planning, organizational development. We have regular board meetings. The next board meeting is April the 18th. In Bedeck, if you want to drop by from 4 o'clock till 7 at the theater at the Alexander Graham Bell Museum. All of our meetings are open to the public if you want to get involved. And the other big thing, which I'll end with, hopefully I'm within my 8 minutes, I'll end with is our celebration planning. We have this wonderful thing to celebrate, and the board of directors has come up with the idea of having a weekend of celebrations all over. I say the watershed, but I'm encouraging anybody anywhere in the world to celebrate this designation, and certainly within Cape Breton. But we've slotted the weekend of September the 17th and 18th, and hopefully there will be celebration events throughout Cape Breton, and especially within the watershed. If you want to organize a celebration, go for it. I wish everybody would just step out of their homes on September the 17th and go, "Yay, we're a Biosphere Reserve!" And that would be great if they did. There will be one main event in that weekend, which we're organizing for Saturday, probably Saturday afternoon, at the Highland Village in Iona, one of the most spectacular spots to see all 4 counties and to see the lake. And so we've got some great ideas and great plans for some special guests for that event. So hopefully you'll hear more. blbra.ca is the URL, or if you want more information, I'd be glad to talk to you later on. Thanks.